Yo guys, welcome to the first video on this channel and in this series. This series can be about where I show you guys how to make your first 2D platformer game and pretty much how to code in C#. Yeah, just stuff like that. So we'll start off with explaining the two different types of workflows in Unity. The two primary ones, that is. And it's basically a tile-based one and a sprite-based one. So pretty much a tile-based workflow is meant for games built like on a grid where you create your environments by placing tiles, obviously. But the sprite-based workflow gives you more control over the environment since you can place objects more freely and create more detailed and dynamic environment for your game. In this series I'll be using the sprite-based workflow to help you make your first 2D platformer, but if you want to see a tile-based workflow, just leave comments down below and I can start one. Like, I've never made one, so we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's into the video. So what I've done so far is created a new project and just placed a couple like floor tiles down so we actually have a game and a character, and then there's a camera obviously in the game. So the sprites that I'm using I've downloaded from the asset store, so I'll leave a link in the description to the assets if you want to download them yourself and make your game with me. So actually first I'll show you how to download assets from the asset store, so you know you can actually import them. So what we do first is go to the window in the top left. So window in the top left, and if you go down you should see asset store, and basically it should just open up this tab there and just press search online, and that's it. So once you do that it should open up this page. This page, and you can just search for your assets. So if I search 2D platformer and I'll say you want to use free ones, you click free assets, choose the one you want, and pretty much just press, sorry I won't use that one, say this one, you press add to my assets, accept, and then open in Unity. I'm not going to do that because I don't want that asset. Anyway, so then it should open up like a box in the middle of the screen, and just press install, and then it should install everything down here. So you see I've got all the sprites. So pretty much once you've done it, import it, and you've got assets that you want. So we'll start actually getting into the actual game creation, I guess. So the first thing that I would normally do is I adjust the camera size to the size and position, for example, I want it. So for now I'm just gonna make it the size of the land that I've created. Like that. And there's a bunch of different options you can change here, so you can skybox, just clear flag stuff. So I usually leave it on solid color, and you can change the color. This is just the background, so if you want that color, boom, set that. You can ignore that and leave it on orthographic for now. The rest of that you can just leave as well. So the next thing we want to do is add colliders to our ground objects. I've sort of like separated out which ones the character will be standing on. So select all of them. Sorry. Get the ground object, and if you come over to the right side here, there should be an option to add component down here. And what you want to do is you just want to search up collider. So you'll see a bunch of different colliders you can add, depending on what kind of game you're making. So like, tile map, if you want to make a tile based game. So the one we want for a 2D game is the ones that say 2D, because these box colliders, capsule colliders are for 3D games. So once you select that, we'll see a bunch of different options that we can adjust as well. So you see I can edit the collider, size, shape, to whatever you want. The material, basically, you add a material depending on if you want to add friction or bounciness to the object. The third is whether to make the object a trigger. So basically the player doesn't collide with it at all, but they can like walk through it. And in scripts you can set it to like set off traps or open doors or play a message on the screen, just stuff like that. But for now, just ignore it. We're going to use it as a collider. The rest of that you can just pretty much ignore for now. And we come up to the top where it says tag and layer. So basically setting a tag means that you'll be able to find the object in script with a bit of code so that you can identify that that object is that one that you want, like, I guess, in simple terms. I'll show you guys how to do that later, because you'll be doing something with that in this episode. Yeah, and layers can be set so that only certain objects can collide or interact with it, I guess. So if you were to set this to water and then disable the option for a UI to collide with it, then anything with the layer UI will not come into contact with the water layer. Once you just next do this for all the like ground sprites that the player will come into contact with, and once you do that, oh right, okay, with slopes, I'll show you guys a different collider actually for the slopes. So what we do is we can add something called a polygon collider 2D, which means that we can like adjust the shape to how we want. So if you want to add more vertices, you can do that, and pretty much you can just change the shape to anything you want. So we'll add them for that and just leave everything else as it is. Right, next up we're going to work on the character and actually get him a controller, working controller, so you can move left, right, jump, all that stuff. So the first thing you want to do is go to the add component section and add something called a rigid body 2D. Again, just a regular rigid body is for a 3D game. So add the 2D one. Add the 2D one. And again, you'll have loads of different options that you can select. So body type, we have dynamic, kinematic, and static. Just leave it on dynamic for now. Material, you can leave mass, you can change to how you want. Gravity, you can change to how you want, so that's how quickly you fall to the ground. And if you increase the mass, you'll fall quicker, obviously. Collision detection, leave as discrete. And leave this as start or wake. And I also like to add a freeze rotation on the Z position, or Z axis, so that the player doesn't rotate. like upside down and stuff. If you want that, leave that unfrozen. I just personally don't like it. Right, after this, what we want to do is we want to add a box collider, or a polygon collider if you want some more control over the collider of your character. And then just adjust the size of the collider to the size of your character. And that's done. Right, next up is the script, and for this I recommend, if you've seen the assets bit, you create a scripts folder, which I've already done. And you create folders just by right clicking, create, and then folder at the top. So open that. And then go back to the character and press add component. Now what we want to do is we want to name the, name the script. I'm going to name mine a controller. Just going to name it controller. And from here what we want to do is press new script, create and add. And what this should do is it should create a controller script in the assets section, and pretty much just drag and move that to the script section. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to double click on controller, the script, and when it opens, I'll show you guys how to make a movement script. Right, so from here, you guys, 1 second, sorry, there you go. Oh yeah, from here, what you guys will see is two different functions, which is void update and void start. So they'll always be there whenever you make a new script, and if you look above them, it will tell you what they do. So void start, basically anything in that function will be called once per script, and it will be before any frame updates. Void update will basically run any code that's in that function every frame. If that sort of makes sense to you guys. Right, so let's get to making scripts. Right, the first thing we want to do is add horizontal movement. So for this, what we do, in the void update section, we type var, which stands for variable, movement. So it's just like naming our variable, and then equals input dot get axis, and as you saw there was two options. It was get axis raw or just get axis. I'll show you what each of them do the moment we get a script working. So for now I'll stick with get axis, and then in brackets like that put quotes and put horizontal with a capital H, and then put a semicolon at the end, because that's what you have to do in C#. Right. Basically the default input keys for horizontal is A and D, and if you guys want to change that, I'll show you guys how to do that quickly. What you do, you come up into the top left, press edit, press project settings and input manager, and you'll see there's an option for horizontal here, and there's loads of other ones that you can change. But horizontal, scroll down, change A and D to whatever you want, so E and R for example. But yeah, that's that. Right, the next thing we want to do the next thing we want to do is, on a new line, you type, transform dot position. Transform dot position plus equals new vector. So vector 3, new vector 3, and then set our movement variable that we've just created up here as our x, and then just put 0, comma 0, comma 0, so like when we do that it doesn't affect the y or z axis. This basically just assigns a new vector 3 with our input values set to our x value, so we move left and right. What we want to do after though is outside the brackets, we want to times it by time.delta time. So basically what this means is, very simply, it just smoothens the movement over frames. If you want like more detail on it, just search it up, but simply put, it just smoothens the movement. Right, next what we want to do is up here, just under where it says mono behavior, create a new line and create a public float movement speed, and then we can set this to a variable, for example 5f. So we need to put f after a float because then that stands for float. Basically public means that specific float can be accessed by other scripts. So for example, if you were to type it'd be controller dot get it'd be get component, get component, and then the name of the script, controller, and then double brackets dot movement speed, and then you, in another script, you can set that to be 7 or something, just as an example. However, you can also create it so it's private, like that, and that means that that float cannot be accessed anywhere other than in this script. So it's up to you what you want to set that as. You can change it later, doesn't really matter. Right, next what we want to do is back down to this line number 18 for me. You just want to times time.delta time by movement speed. And pretty much just save it. And if we go back into Unity now, so it's just got to reload this stuff first. Press play. And now we should just be able to move left and right. So, right, I'll show you what get axis raw and get axis means now. So if you watch the character, I'm currently using just regular get axis. So what happens is when we move, when you let go of D key, so now, you see the character still moves a little bit, like that. So let go, he still moves. However, if you were to change it to get axis raw, which is what I use normally for my games, press play, you'll see that the moment we let go, he doesn't like slide a little bit. So that's pretty much the only difference between it. Right. Now that we have the horizontal movement set in place, let's get to setting up jumping for our character. So under movement speed, up here, we create a new float called, sorry, not float, but it's like a variable. So it's called rigid body 2D, and then after that you can set the name to whatever you want. I'm going to set mine to RB, something simple and easy to type out. Next, in the start section, void start, you type the name of your rigid body component and press, the name equals get component, and then with these little arrow things, you type rigid body 2D, like that, then double brackets, semicolon. And basically what that does is it auto assigns our rigid body to that RB value. Right, now what we're going to do is set up jumping for our character. So what we want to do first is create an if statement, and input dot get button down. So when you press down a button, that means, then in brackets jump, and then in quotations as well, like that. So what that means is basically whenever we press down the jump key that we've set it to, default is spacebar, then it will run that if statement and any code that's inside it. So the first thing we're going to do now is create a new float now called jump force, and set that to 8 or whatever you guys want. So now what we do, what we're going to do is we're going to type the name of our rigid body and then dot add force. Dot add force, and then in brackets create a new vector 2, and then in more brackets set the x value as 0 so that when we jump we don't move left or right, and then jump force as the y value so that it adds force on the y value when we press the jump, so we jump. After this like vector 2, I guess, value, add a comma and add or type out something called force mode 2D dot impulse. This means that basically force will be applied instantly when we press the spacebar instead of like after a second or two. So now if we save and go back into Unity, you should see that our character should be able to jump. See, there we go. Character can now jump. If you want to change any of the values in Unity, you can just come down here, change it to 6 for example, and the character won't jump as high. Same with the movement speed. Yeah, but yeah. One thing, however, once we've done that, we can actually jump infinitely. There is no stopping the option to jump. So you can just jump mid-air like that. So to fix this, what we're going to do now, there's different ways you can do this by adding, for example, another box collider that detects collision with the ground. But the easiest way I find to do it, and can't really find it anywhere else, is to basically create a new tag here called ground, like that, and assign it to all of the objects that have the box collider on, and pretty much like that. And you should see, once that's done, all of them should have the ground tag. So earlier I was talking about tags and what they do, and that I was going to use them later. We're going to use it for the ground. So what we're going to do is, back into Visual Studio, we want to make a public ball called can jump. Basically, a ball basically just means true or false. So there's two values that it can be. So you can set it to equals true or equals false. If you just leave it default, it's automatically true unless specified somewhere else in the script. So what we can do now as well is, if we come down to this if statement, after this first bracket, do the double and sign, and then just type can jump. So what that means is, basically when we press down the jump button and can jump, the can jump ball is true. It means that we'll be able to jump. Right, now we're going to add two new functions. One called void on collision enter 2D. There's an on collision enter for 3D games, but we're doing 2D, so on collision enter 2D. And I'd like to change this collision bit to object. Wait, no, sorry, other. Yeah, other. And then the other function is called on collision exit 2D. And again, change this collision to other. So what we're going to do, in the void on collision enter 2D section, we're going to create an if statement. Basically, if other dot game object dot tag equals, like double equal sign, ground. So whatever you named the ground tag as, set that as the name. Yeah. And then do that. And then what we're going to set is, when we're on collision with the ground, can jump equals true, like that. Now copy and paste that, and copy it and paste it into the void on collision exit 2D, and just change this true to a false, like that. So now what this means is, when we collide with the ground, we have the option to jump, because this ball will be set to true. Yeah, and when we leave the ground, the ball will be set to false, so we can't infinitely jump. You can change that slightly so that you can do like double jumps and stuff, but we'll leave it simple for now. Yep, and that's all the coding we're going to need for the character controller. So now if we go back into Unity, it reloads all the scripts, you'll see that we now can't infinitely jump. We have one jump, and you can even see this actually on the inspector. If you look at the ball, when we jump, it's false. When we're on ground, it's true. Like that. Yep, so that's how to make a simple 2D controller in Unity. So I hope this helps you guys. In the next episode we'll be adapting the script slightly to a different jumping style, so if you guys didn't like this, I'll be changing the jumping style to one that I prefer as well. So you can choose between what kind of jumping you like, and just play around with the like movement speed and stuff, and see what you guys like. And also next episode we're gonna be adding animations to the character, and maybe we'll even get to adding an enemy depending on how long the video is. So I hope this helps you guys out, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and good luck on starting your journey and creating your first 2D game. Please like, subscribe, and leave comments down below on how you guys think I can improve the tutorials or things you guys would like to see in the future. And just check out my main channel for my devlog on me making my own game, and there'll be a link in the description. Peace.